Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Jackie Johnston, and I am the Superintendent of Huron Valley Schools, and I am delighted to be here and to see so many people who come because they care about this school district. Thank you for being here. So for those of you that were around, you might recall in 1994, the voters took some pretty bold action and changed the way schools were funded so that school districts are now funded by the state. And that was done really for two reasons. One was to help provide equity in funding among school districts, and you'll hear more about the success level on that in a little bit. But it was also about helping taxpayers with the tax burden that was out there. You know, we were a really high tax state, and the way they changed it to the state funding public education, it took that burden off the taxpayers and was very helpful in that regard. 1994, when that change occurred, that was a historic event in school funding in the state of Michigan. And as I stand here today, I think when we look back in the future, when we look back at where we are today, I think we are going to see today also as a historic time in school funding. And I say that for two reasons. Right now, the legislature is recommending budget cuts that are unprecedented, something we have never seen before in public education. And the second piece that makes this unprecedented is for the first time ever, since 1994, they are rating the school aid fund. They are suggesting that the school aid fund is no longer just for K-12 public education, but that the approximate $900 million of higher education should now be funded out of that same pot of money. So just really unprecedented times. So we all know that the state has significant financial issues. There's no doubt about that. And we are funded by the state, so obviously that becomes our issue as well. The financial issues that the state has is really twofold. Number one is the economic crisis we've been dealing with both as a nation and a state for many years now has really put us in the state of Michigan in a very sensitive position. But also very recently, the state has approved bills, and it's on the governor's desk for signature, I believe, to reduce business taxes by $1.7 billion. And so if they're reducing business taxes by $1.7 billion, then that means there's $1.7 billion less in tax revenue in order to run the state. Now, I will not be commenting on the business tax reduction. I do not own a business, and I'm not a tax expert, but I do know that the impact of this is going to be a significant burden for our kids based on what the legislature is saying right now. It appears from the things that are being said in Lansing that they do not value the work we do in K-12 public schools or in Huron Valley schools. In Huron Valley, we are committed to ensuring that all students have proficiency levels, high proficiency levels in all core content areas, but of course we want much more. We want each student to achieve their personal best. We want each student to walk out the door when they graduate with high-level skills so that they can create whatever kind of future they want to create. So that means we need a highly qualified staff that provides a rigorous academic program to our kids. And that's at the elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. That's at our alternative high school, our traditional high schools, and our international academy. It's for our general ed kids, our special ed kids, and our students who are at risk. And it's connecting the kids through arts, athletics, and academics. So whether it's science courses or world languages, drama or band, football or lacrosse, helping each student to get excited about learning, to be connected to the district. That's what we do. That's what the public dollars pay for. But the funding bills in Lansing are putting our kids at significant risk. So we have a lot of tenacious defenders of public education, and I think those of you that are sitting in this room today are some of them. I do want to thank Sean Carlson, our board treasurer, who is here today. He's also going to talk as a parent, but he's here today. 7 board members who always put kids first in the decisions that they make. And I also want to thank our administrators for taking time out of their busy day, because they are also strong advocates. So if you're an administrator, wave. Okay, well, thanks for being here, you guys. Okay, and then we are also incredibly fortunate to have a partnership with families and community members. And what was great about this group of parents you're going to hear about over here is this group of parents stood up when they heard what was going on, and they said, "Not on my watch. I am not going to watch public education be moved to low priority, not while I'm here to do anything about it." So let me tell you who these people are. And I have a cheat sheet, and I have a feeling I'm going to make a mistake on where everybody's kids go, so you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So Sean Carlson, in addition to being our board treasurer, also has a Country Oak student and another Country Oak student in a couple more years. And then we have Pam McCall, if I'm going to do them in order, who I was at the IA Honors Night last night, and her daughter was front and center for that, so congratulations, Pam, and also has a Milford High School graduate. And then we have Julia Kondoff. You guys need to wave as I say who you are. Julia is a parent of a Country Oak student. Okay, and Meg Wimmer is the parent of a graduate from Lakeland High School and has a junior, okay, so we get to keep her one more year. And then we have Tracy Beamlander, is a parent of a White Lake Middle School student and 2 Oxbow students, okay. And then we have Kim Galbraith, who's the parent of 2 Milford High School students and 1 Muir student, and is also a local business owner. So she kind of wears 2 hats as she's talking about these issues. And then we have Denise Pistana, who is a parent of a Lakeland High School student, just the one, right? And then we have, Christina Gillingham, which is the parent of a Muir Middle School student and a Johnston student, right? So really a nice broad base of parents who are here to talk to you about the issues. So they have been highly effective in talking to our legislators about the issues that are impacting public education and impacting Huron Valley. They have been respectful but relentless in their message and dare I say, hounding them on listening to the issues that we're facing. So before I turn the program over to them, because this is really a parent program, parent to parent, can you help me thank them for the time that they have spent volunteering?
First of all, it's my pleasure to be here. There's no other place I'd rather be right now than standing up for my 3 children and the rest of Huron Valley School District's children, and actually the state of Michigan's children. That's how important it is to me. There are 3 reasons for me to be involved: Jared, Sydney, and Nathaniel, and I also have a niece at Heritage, but there are 9,996 other students also why I'm here today, and for that matter, throughout the state of Michigan. The Huron Valley School District has exceptional teaching staff, and their lives will also be changed due to what's happening in Lansing. So for that's another reason for me to be involved, to listen, to go to meetings, to read the newspaper, to check online and see what's happening in our district and what's happening in Lansing. I only know what my future will look like if I take the steps today to email, to visit our legislators, to come to meetings like this, because then I know I will have had a say in what's happening in the future. If I don't go to any meetings, if I do not email my legislators, if I do not attend any school board meetings, then I will have done nothing for the future. So that is why I'm glad you're here today. One of my friends, I went to our Oxbow's parent council meeting last night, and I had asked a question to one of the parents, or in general. And we talked about change. And one of the parents, she's sitting in the audience right now, her name's Crystal. We actually exchanged through Facebook, and we started talking about change. And if you don't mind, Crystal, I'm going to use your quote this morning. Change can mean good things to come, but in school issues, I sadly am fearing change. Change could mean less for our children, and less for our children says what of our and their future. They are our future. How can we expect the future to be bright when we could end up with less resources? And I completely agree, Crystal. And that's why I'm here today. And that's why we as a school district can come together and help each other out. And I'm excited to introduce Pam to you.
Before I build upon what Tracy said, I wanted to make clear something that Jackie did in her introduction. My kids are done. I don't think we can be done. I don't believe that for a minute. I think it matters, these decisions that are being made right now, and that's why I'm here. I'm gonna say again, my kids are done. But this meeting, this grassroots is supposed to be about coming together, about senior citizens thinking about this impact, about business owners thinking about this impact, about moms and dads thinking about it, the kids themselves. I want to start inviting them and getting them to come. The voting age kids that Lansing might listen to, the teachers, the administrators. What we are looking for is one voice. We are not looking today or with our movement to say what should be done specifically. We understand it's complex. We understand that the state is in trouble. We want our state fixed. We don't want to fix our state to have our children gone. And that is what scares me. That's why I'm here. I want them to have a reason to stay in the state and raise their own families. And again, I'm not trying to use fear tactics here. I'm trying to be a realist. The movement that's going on right now in the simplest of terms is to cut K-12 hugely and expand what K-12 covers and this is the tricky part, revamp education completely after that's done. Let me just say to you, we're not saying right, wrong, or indifferent. Fixing can be good, like Tracy started to talk about. Change can be good. However, these are children. This isn't how to reproduce a car more efficiently, more green, more effectively. These are children. If we make these changes now, as pervasive as they're talking about, we are talking about any kids, maybe yours, who are midstream, going through some massive changes for the next 2, 3, 4 years. There are not impact studies yet on what's going to happen. There hasn't been proper research yet on what's going to happen. I'm okay with them making change. Moderation. What we are asking for today, and you're going to get support from general knowledge of legislation and where the budget is so you get what's going on in general, but what we're asking for is one voice just to say, slow down. Change has to happen. We have to fix our state as efficiently as possible. However, these are kids. To lose 2, 3 years first making cuts and then making revamps before we see the results of each change frightens me. It frightens me. My child, 12 years in this school district, both my children did phenomenal in this school district. Maybe it could have been better. Maybe it could have been a lot worse, but if you make changes and you don't wait for the fallout, make some moderate cuts, let them know we might have to do this again, but let's see the results of the cuts before we go and make all these additional ones and additional stipulations and additional broadening of K-12 and everything else. We have to have one voice to come together and then tell them, look, make changes, but listen to us. Do studies on our children, slow down a little bit, and watch what happens before you make the next, the next, the next. Don't be so huge to gouge our kids. That's our point. Our community, I've been in this community for 18 years. Our community has gone through some rough spots over the last few years over education. in our community, I would call it some groups that got disenfranchised. And it was supposedly done more slowly, and I'm saying supposedly not because I want to argue what should or shouldn't be done. I want to point out if it is that breaking up of our community that happens when change occurs, we have to look at pervasive change like this more slowly. We have to slow it down and not gouge so deeply, because these are kids. This is our future workforce. So for business owners, I need them to reconsider the fact that what comes out of these changes could impact their employees in the future, who they hire, who they can hire, how well trained they are. Yes, it does impact. I also work at the community college. Preparedness matters. This is supposed to be public education. We are supposed to appeal to not just the middle of everything. We're supposed to appeal to those who have some need, great need, or gifts. We need to do that. That's our job. It shouldn't be because others can bankroll to do that for their kids in need on either end of the spectrum. We can't just teach to the middle. Making pervasive cuts and not seeing the outcome needs to be looked at more deeply with one voice from us. We can't be in factions. We don't want to fight about how to do it. We want to go to Lansing with one voice from our community saying, think, don't cut so deep right away before you see the outcomes of every single cut you make. Then let us know what has to happen next. We'll be part of the change. Don't yank it out from under us, taking our kids with you, and then say, oh, that didn't work so well. Because there's kids in progress right now who will get lost in that whole change. Thank you.
Good morning. As you may know, from the various pieces of communication from the district, the governor is proposing a $470 reduction in funding per pupil in the state of Michigan. Both the House and the Senate also have their take on the school budget cuts. Even though the House and the Senate's proposals are lower than the governor's, they're still significant. The House and the Senate's proposals now go to the conference committee, which has a task of coming up with a compromise. Once a compromise is established, it goes back to the House and the Senate, and then it goes on to the governor. While all of this is going on, there is this special group or committee called the Revenue Estimating Conference, and it's occurring during the same time of the budget cuts that they're trying to propose. This conference gets together every couple of years, and they review the funds for the state. This conference has determined that the state has an excess of $428 million for this current year and $497 million for next year. Knowing that this money is out there, it should be proposed that the money should be used to help with the shortfall in funding for K-12. The state shouldn't sit on the money. They should use it to offset these devastating cuts. We're in a unique position to make an impact to pressure the state to use these funds as part of the solution for the cuts. We can do this by contacting our representatives and impress upon them how important our children are. If we're going to make a change in Lansing, we're going to have to come together to effect this change. This is a huge undertaking, but it's not one that we are not capable of. We're a very capable group, and I think we can all do this together. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about how this will impact Huron Valley schools. We all know Superintendent Johnston just told us how in 1994 Proposal A was approved by Michigan voters, and that decided how we would be funded. If you look at this chart up here, it shows where Huron Valley schools, it's in the yellow line, we're currently funded at $7,248 per student. If you look on there a little bit higher is the county average in gray. So we're below the Oakland County average. We're the 24th district in 28 districts in Oakland County, and we're below the state of Michigan average for funding. So we are a low-funded district, but we've been high achieving. This is a preliminary budget forecast, and this again is based on the information that Governor Snyder when he proposed the budget. So this is based on the $470 per pupil cut that we're looking at. So if you look at the top line, we're looking at $4.7 million in cuts. We're also going to lose students next year. The next line is the special ed millage. In Oakland County, we'll be losing some money on that based on the taxable values of our property. And then the other category is some one-time grant money that we won't be having for the future. Under the expenditures, salaries will be increasing slightly, healthcare, and retirement. I want to point that out there. The state of Michigan requires teachers to pay into a state-mandated retirement program. That amount is fixed by the state, so Huron Valley has no control over that amount. And we're thinking the actual rate may be a little bit higher, but right now it's about 18.4%. Utilities are expected to rise, as well as FICA, Social Security tax. And the last one is some federal stimulus money that we received, another one-time amount of money. So if you see at the bottom, we're looking at a $12.9 million deficit for the next school year. $12.9 million. This slide again is based on the preliminary budget. If you look for the fiscal year next year, 2011-12, you can see that our expenditures are going to be greater than our incoming revenue. And again, we're looking at a $12.9 million deficit. If we use some of the fund balance that's available, it's also known as the rainy day fund, that would be approved by the school board. We could also possibly find some reoccurring reductions, but we're still going to have unidentified reductions of about $8.6 million. And this last slide, I know it's a little confusing to read, but if you go, what we've done is from the last 8 years, starting in 2003, all the way up to 2010, we have made reductions. And if you go to the final where the red arrow is, you can see that we've made $23 million in reductions in the last 8 years. And last year alone, we, out of the general fund, made reductions of $4.2 million. My concern is, where are we going to find another $12 million to cut? Huron Valley Schools has prided themselves on being a AAA district, arts, athletics, and academics. Can you imagine a district that would not have athletics? Can you imagine not spending a Friday night at Milford or Lakeland watching a football game? Can you imagine on the 4th of July not seeing the high school or the middle school bands parading down Main Street because we can't fund a band program? Can you imagine a district where we would have 35 children in a kindergarten class? How about no AP classes or foreign languages? Or how about a district that can't afford to transport your child to and from school every day? I can't imagine this district either. That's why we need to be one voice together for our children. Thank you.
Good morning. I'd like to talk to you about the different activities that our group has been doing. We were formed in the January-February timeframe and really began towards the end of February with our data, our information, and we were ready to go out and start talking to our legislators. So our group, along with Superintendent Johnston, we've made 3 trips to Lansing in the last 60 days. We have met in each trip individually with our representatives, Eileen Kowal, Lisa Brown, as well as Bill Rogers. In a couple of trips, we've met with State Senator Mike Kowal. We've talked about the Huron Valley story. We've talked about why we are at exceptional risk because of the low funding within our district. And we have shared with them what our concerns are. And I will tell you that they are sympathetic, but feel that their hands are tied. In March, we went ahead and we went to a parent forum in West Bloomfield that was put together by Lisa Brown. And she brought in a couple members from the House Education Funding Committee who don't agree with the governor's budget, and basically were calling on us to go back to our school districts and to put a call to action in to help them because they are within the minority on the House Education Committee in their disapproval for the fund. And the interesting part is, as we've gone through all these meetings, the number of superintendents that are taking the times out of their day to talk about each individual school district story has just been so enlightening for me. In this meeting, the Walled Lake superintendent got up and spoke and talked about the $30 million that they're going to be required to cut next year. And the Avondale School District talked about the fact that they've been in deficit spending for 2 years, and along the way that they have done all of the things that the governor is asking the school districts to do. They have no more options. They are completely out of options. And then the following week, a couple of us, along with Superintendent Johnston, went up to the Senate to testify in front of the Senate Appropriations Committee. And in the audience this time were superintendents from 7 different school districts, Huron Valley being one, Utica, which is the state's 2nd largest school district, Plymouth Canton, Livonia, Novi, Wayne Westland, and representatives from Detroit Public Schools. The Novi superintendent testified that if this budget is approved, it will send 22 out of the 26 districts in Wayne County into deficit spending immediately. Overall, I'll tell you that the trip was very disappointing and extremely disheartening. Half of the committee got up and left immediately following the roll call, and the people that were left talked to each other. Here I took a day off of my work, traveled all the way out to Lansing, like I had today, had a typed up 3-minute speech and looked up, and I wasn't speaking to anybody but the people that were already there to advocate on behalf of their own school districts. The people were all talking, the senators were talking to each other. Very disheartening. So on the way home, we thought, okay, we need to step this up. What are we going to do? And we brainstormed about our next opportunities. There are 2 important people as I talk about the next couple of visits that we've done. Paul Scott, who is a representative from Fenton, is on the House Education Committee on the policy side. And Bill Rogers, if you live in Milford like I do, is the chairperson for the House Education Committee on the funding side. So in March, we hosted Paul Scott here in our district, and we took him on a trip and a tour of Harbor High, and then another trip and tour of the International Academy, and had them speak to the different children so they could talk about their stories. And as Pam said, could kind of show the fact that you need to be able to teach to the spectrum and not to the middle, that there are no 2 children who have the same education requirements, and we need to be able to teach to all of them. And then the following week, we ambushed, I will say, Bill Rogers, and we talked to all the superintendents within his jurisdiction, so Brighton and South Lyon and Heartland and Howell, and we brought all of those people or representatives from those school districts here to Baker. And we invited Bill Rogers into a closed school to be able to talk about the impact and the fact that we feel that Lansing wants to make these cuts, not already taking into account the cuts that have already been made. They're just assuming that we've just been going along and now it's time for us to pay the piper, but they're not taking a look at the sacrifices that our community has already put together. And then the following week, Bill Rogers hosted a meeting here at Ruggles in downtown Milford. And there was significant, in addition to our group, there was significant attendance from the Michigan Education Association. So a lot of the teachers were able to come and to talk about the impact that this budget will have on them. Last Thursday, we made another trip out to Lansing and again individually met with all of our legislators. From a community standpoint, our group has made several presentations to our district's PTO and PTAs, the district parent council. We have filmed 2 public service announcements and made presentations to both the Huron Valley Chamber of Commerce Board and the Highland Business Association Board. I feel that our work that we've had on the Grassroots Committee is so important to our children, our families, and to our community. And we will continue to work with our legislators and to make as many trips to Lansing as necessary to make our voices heard. Thank you.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for coming out. I'm Julia Kondoff, and I'm from Country Oaks. My daughter goes to school there. And loving Huron Valley and loving the education that we're getting right now, but we don't want to see that change. We want to see that going forward. So you're probably asking yourselves, what can we do? And one thing you can do is stay on these senators and these representatives and even Governor Snyder and let them know that it's not just these people up here who are upset, it's the whole community. It's the seniors, it's the Board of Education, it's the superintendents throughout the state of Michigan. So one thing that we've done is, well, let me give you a little history. We've set up an online petition that you can sign and send off, and it will automatically email Senator Cowell, and it will email Representative Cowell, Lisa Black, Bill Rogers, and Governor Snyder. So we started this yesterday. I sent it out to the PTA from Country Oaks, and we have about 150 signatures already. So those people have received 150 emails since 2 o'clock yesterday. So I think that's something that can get people to listen. But this online petition, it's really about numbers. You know, if they only get 150, that won't mean so much. So what we're asking you to do is go online, sign this petition. That will automatically send out the emails. But don't stop there. Publish that you want your friends, you know, send it out on your emails, put it on your Facebook, tweet about it, whatever you can do to get it out to as many people as you can. And not limited even to Huron Valley. You can extend to anybody across the state of Michigan that you think is going to care about this so that they can go off and move forward with this kind of thing as well. Basically what the petition says, when the school aid fund was established, they set up a methodology for funding these schools. If the school aid fund was left intact exactly as it is today, there would actually be a surplus for our kids this next year. But instead, they're going to take and put these community colleges and upper education into the school aid fund, which is going to drain those funds, dilute those funds, and result in these, you know, huge cuts for our kids. So what we want them to do is leave that school aid fund alone for now. If you want to do some reforms on how you're doing education, don't take the funding away before you do that. And basically what we're telling those people is we expect them to stand up for our kids. We expect them to leave that school aid fund alone, keep funding the children, and we're going to hold them accountable for how they vote. So if everybody can do that, that would be really great. We've got little pieces of paper. They're about this big on the tables over here. The address is change.org/petitions/support, and then it's a dash, like a minus sign. So it's support-michigan-public-schools-stop-funding-cuts. So let's get out there and let's mobilize all of our little networks and get them all going. Thank you very much.
So I'm Denise Pistana, and I am One Voice. And this is what I can do, so I hope you'll join me and we can make our voices heard in Lansing. Please sign up for our Every Door, Every Day initiative. If you see these posters around the room, we're going to flood our representatives in Lansing from May 19th to the 31st with our calls, our letters. We want our voices to be heard. On one of each of the poster boards, you can sign up for a day. One is for each different district. So you've got Milford, Highland, White Lake over there, and Commerce over here. Next, I want you to talk to 5 friends, family members, or neighbors, and have them join you to make the call, to write an email. I want you to call the senator, your representative, the governor, for the day that you signed up for. Then I want you to take one of these reminder forms, which have all the email addresses and phone numbers, and write down the day that you've signed up for, and then on that appointed day, call, email, both, and get your message and tell our representatives that we expect them to make education funding a priority. If you have any questions, you can ask me afterwards, and now I'm going to introduce Sean Carlson.
Good morning, my name is Sean Carlson, and as was mentioned earlier from our superintendent, I am the school board treasurer. Before I talk as a parent of this district, I just want to mention first what the school board has done. A couple of school board meetings ago, we did pass a resolution, and the school board voted unanimously to pass that resolution. I don't want to read the whole resolution here, but I do want to read a couple important parts of that resolution. That resolution referred to as, whereas school funding has increased by less than 1% per year during the past decade, failing to keep up with increased costs, mandates, and standards, prompting staff and budget reductions to maintaining program. And whereas Michigan voters in 1994 approved Proposal A, a measure that eliminated the ability of many school districts, including Huron Valley Schools, to seek operating funds from constituents, and shifted that responsibility to the state through an increase in the sales tax. And I want to talk about that just briefly when we talk about rating the fund. There was many components to Proposal A in 1994. But this is about 2 pennies. This is your 2 cents, putting your 2 cents and having your voice heard as one Huron school district. If you remember, the sales tax went from 4 cents, 4 pennies, up to 6 pennies. Of that 4 pennies, 60% was to be designated to the school aid fund. 2 of those pennies, that increase, 100% was supposed to stay with school aid fund. If you take nothing else from this meeting today, when you pick up that phone and call those legislators or send in that email, you should be hopping mad that that Constitution has been violated. It was designated for the school aid fund. It was designated for the school aid fund. Community colleges and higher ed have the ability to raise tuition. Local schools do not. Now, I don't want this to sound as if it's whining. If you were to look at the data that's been presented here to you today, go to the Michigan Department of Education, pull out any of the websites, look at any of the standardized tests that our school districts take, and measure our district and divide that by the school foundation allowance that we're receiving. You'll be hard pressed to find another school district, not only in Oakland County, but in the state of Michigan, that is operating any more efficient than we are here. This is not about whining. This is about doing what's right and making sure that the legislators up there protect the Constitution, but protect our kids. I'm up here also as a parent. I have a son that's a first grader and a daughter who's a fifth grader at Country Oaks. We'll be going into the middle school at Oak Valley next year. As it was mentioned from Meg earlier, we're a AAA district. Last school board meeting, we met at the cafeteria at Lakeland, and we recognized the academic achievements of this school district. We recognized the athletic achievements and also the arts during that board meeting. I'm proud of this district and what we're able to accomplish on such limited funds. And I want to make sure that my children and the children of this school district have the same advantages that the kids who have come through Huron Valley in the past have. And so this is about us having one voice as a school district, being proud of what we have here as a school district, picking up those phones and not letting those senators or those representatives off the hook. I worked up in Lansing, I worked up in the legislature a couple of years ago, and I can tell you, if they get flooded with phone calls and you're on them and you're letting them know that you're a registered voter and that you know when the primary is in 2012 and the general election is, and that you have kids in the district, or that you're a senior and you care about your grandkids and you care about the Constitution and you care about what's right, you're going to make a difference. So stay with it. I want to thank the folks who have really been the strength behind this, the superintendent and the parents who have stepped up to lead this charge. So thank you very much.
Hopefully you feel like you understand better the impact of what is happening in Lansing, how that impacts us in Huron Valley, most importantly, the kids in Huron Valley. And so we're hoping that this drives you to do two things. Number one is go online and sign that petition. Every time you sign the petition, as was mentioned, it's a hit back to your representative and your senator saying another person is signing on for this. And so numbers count on that. And then the second thing that you heard is contact your senator and representative, whether it's by phone or email. Don't use snail mail, that takes forever. The budget will be long past by then. So whether it's by phone or by email, and you have a couple of choices. You can tell your own story, and that's always best if you're willing to do that. However, if you don't have time to do that, we do have a mock-up of a letter that you can use via email or use as a script for the phone that just kind of talks through some of the talking points. So whether it's by telephone or by email, please contact them to let them know how you feel. And it's really a very easy message from my standpoint, which is we need to fully fund public education, we need to honor the Constitution and Proposal A, and we cannot raid the school aid